Hello to everybody out there watching us on Facebook or any other place that we have posted this. I'm Steve Stott, President of the Sherman Players, and I'm welcoming you to Keep the Ghost Light On with my co-host Robin Frome. Say hello, Robin.
Hello.
There he is saying hello. Oh, he actually said hello today,
I said hello.
He grunted hello, which is yeah, great. You've never really heard him speak too much before, but there we go. We've got some great guests again tonight, so we'll get to those momentarily. As usual, give you a little bit of news on what's going on. There's not an incredible amount to talk about again because Christmas and the holidays have been in the way, and it's all been a little bit quiet. Things are progressing virus-wise as they have been before, and we'll see what goes on in the new year. So what I really wanted to talk about was a couple of things from the Sherman Players' point of view. Coming up to the end of the year, if you feel minded to help us put on some wonderful shows next year, as soon as we can, then please make your way to the Sherman Players website and make a tax-deductible donation. That will be absolutely well appreciated by ourselves and our community as we put on some of the shows that we hope to put on next year. Our website is shermanplayers.org, and you'll find there's a support page there where you can make the donation. That will be really well appreciated. So thank you very much. That's the appeal for money. We recently produced a version of A Christmas Carol, an audio version, which is available on Facebook. We're going to put that on YouTube. Woo! Put it on YouTube. Yeah, so that'll be on YouTube very, very soon for people to listen to. It's episodic, so there are 11 episodes, all read by different local actors who are very, very, very good. I'm so proud of the production we put on. I'm also putting up the 2 omnibus editions, which is basically the 2 halves of the run as well for you to digest. So that's going to be up there. Also on YouTube, when I can get a little bit of time to do it, I'm going to be posting the whole of this series, Keep the Ghost Light On. We've been running now since Robin first came to me, I think in May, about this. We did some Zoom sessions that we didn't record. Then when we polished it up a little bit and decided it was fit for prime time, we started going live and also publishing the recordings of the show. So we have best part of 6 months of shows now in the can, which you can get to through Facebook anyway. But I'm also going to be posting those onto YouTube, so that you can go back and look at some of the great guests that we've had. It's the end of the year. This is our final show before the new year, and big announcement here. This will actually be our penultimate regular edition. We've decided that we probably have covered just about every aspect of the performing arts in the time of COVID, and as things settle more into a new normal, we feel it's probably a good time now for us to take a break. So we'll do one more scheduled show next Monday. That's the 4th of January. And then we'll follow up probably in 2 or 3 weeks after that. We'll follow up with a show where we invite back some of our guests from previous shows to see where they've got to, how they've fared since we first talked to them a number of months ago. So that's the plan. Having said that, Robin and I thought this show would only run through July.
Yeah.
And here we are. We're still here. So who knows what'll happen after that. I think there's a lot of chance we will be back in one format or another as we progress through COVID and the new year. We've met some really interesting people. So that's the news. Oh, before we get on to our guests, and I'm blathering on a little bit, I just want to do one little shout out for one of our fellow theatres in this region of Connecticut, and that is Musicals at Richter. Musicals at Richter is the oldest outdoor musical theatre in Connecticut, longest running, and they do wonderful shows over the summer. Unfortunately, during the storms that came through Connecticut and the Northeast over Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, they suffered some pretty major damage to their outdoor staging area and some of the supporting structures around that. So I know we have friends of Musicals at Richter in common with the Sherman Playhouse, and I know we have a number that watch this show and are involved. I know they're looking for physical help to go and shift stuff, break stuff down, reinforce stuff, make sure stuff just doesn't fall down now. So anybody who's interested in that, do reach out to Bobby Breer. That's Robert Breer on Facebook, and also you can look on their website and on their Facebook page to get in touch as well if you've got any chance of helping out to help them put things straight at Musicals at Richter. If you can't get hold of them, you don't know how to get hold of them, by all means drop us a message on the Sherman Players page, and I'll be happy to pass that on to them. So shout out for Musicals at Richter, who do a great job, and as I always say in this region, when one of us succeeds, we all succeed. So we do hope that they can get themselves straight. Okay, so I've gone on for long enough. It's time now for me to pass over to Robin, who can introduce our guests for the night. So Robin, over to you.
Thanks, Steve. Another great panel tonight. Thank you all for participating. First, we're going to start with Jennifer. As I say, usually with who we have, Jennifer, we don't have all night for your resume, but I do want you to hit the highlights, what you would like to. Also, please, if you have something coming up, you can plug it and as much as you want, and so we can look out for it, any websites or anything like that. And then how this pandemic has affected you, when it started, now is it different, and looking towards the future. Go right ahead.
All right, so I'm Jennifer Roberts. Been singing and dancing since I was young. Musical theater major, but I did a lot of song and dance for many years. I did Guys and Dolls with Tom Wopat at a regional theater in Michigan. I live in Michigan. I've done a lot of work around the country. I was with a show called The All Night Strut for many years, the soprano and the alto versions. And a few years ago, I started producing my own shows in New York. I was actually considering moving to New York right before COVID hit. But I've produced 2 shows in the last 7 years in New York. And then I did a CD of the one that I started with in 2014. It came out in 2018. It won, or it was nominated for 2019 MAC Award in New York City. And it's gotten a lot of international airplay, which is very cool. And I was starting to fundraise because my second show is based on the rare and unknown gems of Sheldon Harnick, who we know is the lyricist of She Loves Me, my favorite musical, Fiddler on the Roof, The Rothschild. So that was my heart and soul. I've been working on it since 2016. We've done it several times in New York City, and 5 times last year. We were getting ready to tour with it when COVID hit, and that stopped everything. I started, like I said, fundraising for the CD version. I funded my first CD myself, but the second one with COVID has been very difficult to get it moving because it is very expensive. But fast forward, during COVID, I found myself for the first time in years with a lot of downtime. So I went through some boxes of old VHS tapes of things I'd done over the years. Some theater, I have done some film, TV stuff that I had never really rewatched, sang with the symphony for 7-8 years. And I started putting clips on the internet, on Facebook, on YouTube, and the response was overwhelming. Like, please do more of this. It's really good for my spirit. It's really neat. You're inspiring me. You're keeping my heart light. You're really brightening my day. So that was April, May, June, July. I kind of had fun putting them out there. But because of COVID, there's not a lot going on, obviously live performance wise. So recently I started doing song demos that I could actually start recording some singles and putting them out there. So I did about 6 of them in the last 2 months. And I'm doing them out of Michigan, but I work with the brilliant Ted Firth in New York City. So he's been doing arrangements for me. I go into the studio locally, and what cost $20,000 to record in New York over the course of 2 years, my CD, I'm doing these on a very small scale, but they're everywhere. They're YouTube, Amazon. I just today released one called What Are You Doing New Year's Eve?, which is a famous standard, and that just launched today everywhere, Pandora, Spotify, everything. So I know, right? So it's been kind of cool to find inexpensive ways to keep the creative juices and go. People are still saying this is just what I needed right now. And then going to the point of film and theater, there's no live auditions anymore. And so I'm getting ready to pursue a new agent, but I've been taking online classes. Many are free through Screen Actors Guild. There's a lot through Ripley Gear Studios in New York City. I've paid for some through casting people. So I'm getting all my tools ready. I just did my new reel, everything on a budget, but it's workable. I'm redoing my audio, I used to do a lot of voiceover auditions and commercial work, and that's all. I'm redoing that. Brand new headshots in the last 3 months, which I have not done in years, and getting all my tools. Website's coming up to be relaunched. It's jennifergroberts.com. It's available now, but it hasn't been updated in a while. And then I've got an all about jazz page that I launched this year too, with my reviews of my CD and my live performances. And that's Jennifer Roberts All About Jazz. So things are everywhere, YouTube, Pandora, Spotify. Yeah. But that's what I've been doing, finding creative ways to do what we usually do with a larger budget, more time, and more of a live performance venue into very small scale, but it's been rewarding and people are enjoying it. So
I mean, that again, and I think I said this to one of our guests last week, and you kind of fit the bill as well. You're kind of a poster child for taking the opportunities that have been made available during the pandemic, especially that notion of being able to do things in bits. Yeah. Which either spreads the cost, reduces the cost, or allows you to reach more people. So that's absolutely fascinating. One sort of question. Jazz. Okay, jazz. I think of all the sort of popular music genres, jazz strikes me as the most team-based, the most collaborative of that type of endeavor. How has that been, trying to produce the music in isolation, or have you been able to get together with musicians in a safe space?
No, because I work with musicians in New York City, and what you're saying is true about jazz. It's spontaneous creating in the moment, which is different than classical, where it's written and structured, and theater, where it's set. So basically what I've been doing, unlike when we recorded my CD and when we perform live, is I just write my musical director, who knows my voice and my range, and Ted, can you please put together an arrangement of this song? We did A Child Is Born, which I know from Tony Bennett and Bill Evans jazz. And it took him a few weeks to get it to me. I had 2 days with it, and I went in the studio. And so I create with what he's made. And in a sense, it's different because we're not creating together, but I'm making something new with what he sent me. I did, and I didn't mention this, I had been, as I said, since March, April, May, putting up old things that I had done in the 80s and the 90s. But the beginning of the pandemic, or about August, September, I ran out of video footage. So I asked him to put together a couple of vintage songs, I'll Get By from the 20s and Count Your Blessings, to kind of do for a show called the Jim Masters Show out of, where's he based? He's in the New England. And so they wanted me to perform live. And so I pre-recorded a Facebook video in case they'd let me do the video and not sing live, but I ended up doing both. But anyway, it got like 2,000 hits. The man that runs Legends Radio in Florida commented, people loved it. It was just me singing to him with my house with birds outside. chirping. But it got over 2,000 hits.
Yeah.
And a couple people said, you should record this. And that's where the juices started coming, the idea starting to go in the studio and doing it myself with Ted. A lot of people out of New York are streaming live concerts, but I don't really have a desire to sing to a screen. I've done it a couple times to be able to sing live with my guys. At this point, we're just doing it. He sends me a track, I take it in, and we work it that way. Not to say that soon we won't do something, and very soon we'll be able to be together in New York, because I do want to continue doing these things. But you're right, jazz is the most spontaneous, creating as you go, teamwork, and that I really miss. But I just kind of pretend he's with me and we're creating on the spot. And I only have had a day and a half with each arrangement, so it's not like I've lived with it for 6 months and then I go in. It's really new to me. And he and I have done 4, and I've done 2 song demos for a friend of mine by the name of Bob Levy. And today, 2 of my songs played in the UK, Scotland, and 2 played in the UK, London. And then my newest one launched today on all venues. Isn't that kind of cool?
I mean, that is cool. That is cool. Would you say that this is an opportunity that you didn't even consider?
Yes.
Before it was just not anything that you would have done in the past?
Absolutely, all of it. First of all, the video footage. I've been singing in New York since 2014, but actually since 2002 is when I did my first show. But it's very hard if you don't live in New York and you're not friends with everybody to get New York community to come to your shows. So when people from New York would come, they go, that's amazing, that was great, fabulous, just to keep doing it. But you don't have the audience if you're not friends with everyone, you go to their shows. So putting those DVDs naively out in like I said, April, songs that I did of all different genres, all of a sudden I'm hearing from the cabaret community, I had no idea you were that talented, or that you used to sing classical, or that you're that varied musically. So what it did was it opened up a larger audience. I wouldn't call it more respect, but more interest in people knowing what I do, versus me just going in and booking, a few nights in New York where nobody really shows up. You know what I mean? They do, but it's not on the magnitude of
Yes.
having New York following. So I've had 20, 25, 30 people come on, sometimes 5 friends, the rest were new, a lot of the times just friends. But it's difficult for people to give you a chance. But now that all my stuff is out there and people are responding, I'm loving it. I had no idea that people in New York were watching, but it's opened up interviews. It's opened up, my CD got reviewed by Stephen Mosher at Broadway World in April, even though it came out, a while earlier. So it's just word of mouth now. And it definitely never came to me that I could be recording within an hour of my home,
Yep.
and putting it out there. But because I already had relationships with a lot of these radio stations and DJs, yep. It's playing on the East Coast, Provincetown last weekend. It's just everywhere. And it's been really neat because it's like you said, I never would have thought about it. Being able to
this is this is a story that we've been hearing pieces of, but I think I would say that you're maybe the first, or one of the first people we've heard from who has really seen that blossom. We've heard from people who've been doing it, yeah, and have been surprised at the reception and at the reach and how it's different for them. But to actually hear how that's paying off, yeah. And it'll be really interesting to hear, or to watch, yeah, sort of in the next few months where that goes, and how that translates once the barriers come down. Whether that's a new channel for artists like you who are maybe niche, or perform to smaller audiences, or perform to smaller venues, now getting out to a wider world. Robin, I think you've experienced some of that in terms of the networking possibilities, haven't you?
Oh yeah, we started, as Steve was saying, we started in July. I just started, I don't want to call it trolling, but I said, I got somebody on Facebook, somebody knew somebody knew something. Jennifer, you can attest to this. And it's just, and then, we have our chat, we have our Keep the Ghost Light on chat, and everybody says, oh, hello to this person and that person and this person. So that alone is the great stuff that happens when you're networking, but also it's the great stuff that happens in this pandemic when people are cheering each other on. like, whenever Teri claps like this, a lot of people are doing that metaphorically,
Yes.
throughout the world, basically. So that's awesome. And I want to ask a question. Steve's heard this question before, but I think it's going to work with this conversation. Jennifer, it's amazing how much success you've had. Not leaving your living room. No, I'm just kidding. So, that really warms my heart. That's great, because I don't know if Steve felt this way as much as I did, but I thought we're going to have a lot of people crying on this thing and just being incredibly depressed about it and not being able to perform in front of people. And there are some, but so along with that, have you known anyone in your circle that just said, it's over, forget it, I'm not doing this anymore, I really got screwed by this pandemic, and I'm disgusted, I'm going into real estate or something else like that?
A lot of my friends are teetering on the edge. I've just always been an eternal optimist. So I always try to keep the artistic thing going and never giving up hope. But I have friends in LA and friends in New York and friends where I live, Detroit, Chicago. There is no work. And a lot of us have other trades. I'm a makeup artist, I do other things. And all the work is dried up. So yeah, there's a lot of my friends that are borderline, shall we give up? I think if you change the focus from making it as a star, or say being in a show right now on Broadway, to creating art to share with people, it changes your perspective.
Right.
Because my thing is, people are blessed. They say they're really nurtured, they're encouraged by my music or by my acting stuff, but I'm not making a living at it. But if I switch my focus to what can I offer, what can I give? And the most fulfilling thing is if somebody hears it and says, this is awesome. Or some of the radio host said, I'm definitely playing this. I've got a lady that's playing one on New Year's Eve. She asked for it before I had even sent it to her because she heard it. Someone else, the songwriter, posted it. So if you keep the mindset on what can we give and what can we share and how can we keep creating right now, it keeps everybody hopeful. And in the world of cabaret, which I'm doing more of these days, you fund your own projects and your shows, and it's different than having it, check. I've done theater for a living for many years, and my commercial work and some TV and film. And so I told you I'm kind of refocusing. All my marketing materials are out there soon, so that as the pandemic lifts, casting directors can find me easier. I can get my materials to new agents. I can do more of promoting my own career that I've never thought of before, because for years I just worked. And then with cabaret, you're funding your own shows. So it's just kind of changing mindset to, I'm giving up on this business, it's not helping, to what can I do to create and encourage others right now. And it's a totally different shift.
Yes. We've certainly heard a number of times of the opportunity. I know we've had a couple of shows which have really highlighted that, where the entire panel has basically lit up and said, this is, we're seeing the opportunity in this, notwithstanding those folks in the performing arts who can't continue. We hear from a lot of creatives who are taking the opportunity to create, the writing, the singing, the finding ways to publish the pre-existing material or new channels to be able to create. Clearly, if you're a makeup artist, there may be other avenues that you can go into, but you're limited. If you're a set builder and no one's building sets anymore, or you see a scene shifter and no one needs a scene shifter.
Stage managers, stage managers. A lot of my Broadway friends, though, are finding they're doing readings online. They're being asked to do a lot of fundraising nights. Some of them are getting paid for it. A couple of my friends have said they've been living off of unemployment while they look for new opportunities, which is what I've had to do also where I live, and then grabbing every work is offered. But not just like retail is pretty much gone. I'm also an automotive trainer. I've traveled the years doing automotive work and love travel, and I'm missing it. I'm on the East Coast a lot. I'm in the South. none of that work is happening right now. Dealerships aren't selling cars, so there's no training. Retail is pretty much going under because nobody's in store shopping.
Absolutely,
You know,
absolutely. So a lot of it, a lot of it's the survival jobs that people would fall back on if the performing arts is slow, are also disappearing. So I think that's something we need to keep in mind. But as I said, what's encouraging is that there are opportunities, there are new avenues, either if people stumble on them, or if you think, well, what else? What else should I've got this body of work. What else? How should I use it? And that seems very much the way you've kind of found yourself in this position. I find it absolutely fascinating that that we're seeing that kind of development from people. So Robin.
Yeah, cool. And I think we all think that the word is hustle, and it always has been hustle, and it will always be hustle. So thanks. Stay where you are, on the Zoom couch, as it were. And if we can shuffle on down to Teri. Teri, heard a lot about your new film, and love to talk about that. But please give us some background on your professional life in the arts, performing arts, film, whatever, and then how the pandemic has affected you, as far as the filming and the post-production and all of that.
Sure. First, I have to say, Jennifer, you're such an inspiration. And I, too, am from Michigan. So we are like sisters.
I knew that.
I didn't. We're going to talk after this session. My background, I always dreamt of being a chef, but instead I became an opera singer completely out of necessity. I was paying for my own school, and that was just where destiny led me. I was in the Houston Grand Opera studio program for years. That's where I did my training. I started my career in Germany. I starred as Rose in the film A Street Scene, directed by Francesca Zambello. Harold Prince happened to see the film. I came to New York City. His associate, Ruth Mitchell, the wonderful Ruth Mitchell, called me on my telephone in New York and said, Harold Prince is interested in you for Magnolia and Showboat. And I said, I don't know who Harold Prince is, and I'm here to start my opera career, so I'm really not. And so that was my welcome to New York. Anyway, I auditioned the following week for Hal, and starred as Magnolia for 3.5 years, and also had the incredible privilege of starring in the West End. And that was the beginning of my career. I've worked on Broadway. I sang for many years with Marvin Hamlish, rest his soul. I was his soloist with many Boston Pops, many symphony orchestras. He demanded that I record a CD of his favorite composer, Richard Rodgers. And so I have a CD out called Into Your Arms, the Love Songs of Richard Rodgers, inspired by Dear Marvin. And I have worked in film, television, Broadway. I just finished 3 years on the road with the Rodgers and Hammerstein produced The Sound of Music as the Baroness Elsa Schrader, a role I've done many years, and I loved it. And then immediately after that, I literally came home, unpacked my bags, repacked, and went back on the road with the Christopher Wheeldon's beautiful Tony Award-winning An American in Paris, playing Madame Borel. And when I came back, just to bookend my COVID experience, I was singing 3 concerts with the North Carolina Symphony in March. I had just gone to Spain to see to the Teatro del Soho, Antonio Banderas's wonderful new theater where he's producing fabulous shows in Spanish, and his A Chorus Line was to have opened on Broadway in November. Of course, that was put off, but I had come back from there, did these 3 concerts with the North Carolina Symphony. I had booked The Blacklist, a guest star on that, did my first day of shooting, went down there. This is March first week of March. Did my concerts, hugging, shaking hands, greeting people with the hand sanitizer and all of that. Came back a week later. This was March 9th, was my last day of filming on set. And speaking of makeup artists, my makeup artist was like, yeah, like, we shouldn't be here. We should not be here. And we did that last day of shooting where we had, we probably had 250 extras. And that was my last day of work. And I became quite depressed because everything was cut off immediately. And I was sort of in this netherworld after being on a nonstop treadmill of work. And I live in New York. And it was very depressing to me. Just sort of a complete lack of identity, lack of routine, just really getting the creative rug and the identity rug pulled out from under me. And then I had a really dear friend of mine, David Roth, who is the editor of Aesthetic Lens magazine, and he interviewed me about what it's like to be an artist during COVID. I was real excited. I thought there would be many tears. But the beautiful thing about that interview was it gave me a purpose. And that purpose, like Jennifer just said, I realized that the only way I could create during this time was to support others. The very first thing I did was a fundraiser for the Actors Fund with two wonderful Broadway artists, Ed Dixon and Teri. And at the tail end of that, I'd found a script that I had started writing 5 years earlier. But the main character was sort of a character of privilege. And so I had shelved it. And then when I rediscovered it, I thought, oh, wait a minute. She's not a character of privilege going to her lake house in the Poconos. She's getting away from COVID. And so I wrote the script of Into the Water, which is a short film, one of the first films that was produced through SAG-AFTRA during COVID. We had written 4 different safety proposals in July, and they were just figuring it out. And in 30 hours, we made this film over a 3-day period, 72-hour total period, 15 people on set, made this film about hope and possibility. And it really completely changed my purpose and my trajectory during COVID to one of encouraging others, lifting each other's up, other artists up, really encouraging artists to create, not just, when the pandemic started, I mean, Facebook was awash of auditions. It was like, if I hear one more, I'm singing my book, I'm doing a monologue, I was like, I'm done. But I think people were just trying to find themselves, and none of us, who among us knew we'd be sitting here. As you said, you started in July. You thought you'd end in July, and here we are at the end of December. So, we've all sort of found our way, and some people have not yet found their way. But thankfully, to shows like yours and individual artists reaching out there and saying, hey, just create, whatever it is. I believe that is what is really the glue, the connection that is holding our industry together right now as we look forward to not going back, but moving forward into a new way of creating, a new way of making theater, a new way of making television and film. And I literally just did an episode of FBI Most Wanted, 6 months to almost to the day of doing Blacklist. I booked this show in New York, and it was very different being on set. The dynamic was different. There was an edge, a seriousness, but also a real caring and connection and sense of humor as well. Sort of in those most desperate times, you find yourself uber funny, really telling those jokes and really connecting with people. But there's definitely a desire to create and a desire to connect in not only our in the film and television world, which has found a path forward, but especially in the theater community.
Yes.
So I'm optimistic. I share your optimism, Jennifer.
I think what we've found, what we've certainly found is whether it's optimism or positivity, but certainly hope is something that we've heard a lot of. I think that's the one word that characterizes the messages that we've been hearing from people. It's hope, notwithstanding the immediate the immediate depression of the rugs pulled out from underneath you, as you mentioned, Teri, especially and I can imagine from your point of view when it sounds as though a great portion of your life is always in motion.
Absolutely.
You're always somewhere doing something different, and I just from hearing you talk about it, it's clearly something that you absolutely delight in. It's something that you really enjoy doing. Being in motion and being involved in different projects, and suddenly to have that wall come down where you can't. I can absolutely understand that that would have a dramatic psychological effect.
I think for all of us who, you have a title, Robin has a title, we have these titles. We are singer, we are actor, we are general manager, we are producer, we are whatever. And and this is also a wonderful opportunity as a performer, as a general manager, whatever your capacity is, to completely have everything stripped away from you.
Yeah.
And step back and start over and reevaluate what is necessary, what is essential, what is art to me, sort of redoing the foundation of your artistic being, and not only what makes your artist's heart pound, but what are the reverberations of that heartbeat out into the community, and not just the audience, but our theatrical community, our fellow actors, our fellow stage managers, musicians, makeup artists, all of the myriad, vast family of the performing arts.
Well, again, that was a very definite, a very definite and a very deliberate idea for this particular show. Was we could see people were hurting, and we wanted to give an opportunity for support. And in the same way that Jennifer's story played out and your story is playing out, we've seen where this can go. That it's not what we originally thought. It's become more than that, and I don't want to overstate our little show, but I do think we have brought some at least a channel for people to spread that kind of hope, and to say, look, the arts is here to support, not only support its own, but support community in general. And I hope that we've done a little tiny part of that. But what we've been hearing from to the different levels of influence that people have, they've been able to do a greater or lesser amount of that, and it has been a very definite message that we've been hearing.
There's
Definitely.
also there's another word that is a huge word for me, and that word is possibility. And I think we are sort of beyond hope. I think hope is a wonderful linchpin, but that which catapults it forward into the future is possibility. And that idea of reimagining the theater, reimagining cabaret, reimagining concert work, reimagining symphony orchestra. There's a whole flip side to the performance industry record, and that side is the audience. And there's a vast population of people out there who are longing for content, longing for live theater. Yes, I mean, hooray, the prom, we love it. Wonder Woman, meh. But still,
Yep.
you know, we're all gobbling it up. You know, we're absolutely famished. We're starved for it. And so when the theater comes back, as the symphony orchestras restructure, and they are back, slowly coming back, the audience is already there. The audience is ready. It's just a matter of practicality and safety. So I think possibility is another huge partner word to the hope.
Yeah,
I think you've just given me the title for this
Right.
episode. So thank you for that, Robin.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. And yes, Teri, the audience is waiting with bated breath, waiting. I'm waiting. So a lot of people are trying to get into that live theater mode. But what's interesting also is what Jennifer's talking about, and with your film, and with we had Barry Hewson on, who runs the Canadian National Ballet. It's all being cataloged. I mean, we had a show at Halloween that we can, you know, you can revisit, you can bring it back, you know, the Christmas Carol things from the Sherman Playhouse, and all of your recordings of both of you, you know, all of these things are cataloged. And with this, you know, internet, basically, it's all in a cloud, you know. And if you're not able, if you don't have the money to go to see something in the future, if you don't have the capability or anything like that, then all of these avenues have been discovered in order to see stuff like Hamilton and things like that. And so and there was some generosity going on too, you know, just like
Speaking of which,
yeah.
I'm just going to plug, we are doing a fundraiser for our film. It's currently the only way to see it. And
Okay.
it's a very minimal donation, but SAG-AFTRA has been incredible allowing us to do this. So we have an Indiegogo campaign. We're on Facebook. It's Into the Water Film. Into the Water Film. So go and visit that, and you'll get a private screener. You'll be able to watch it at home with some amazing actors: Puya Masani, Joylyn Jacobs, Scott Willis, my husband, Al Kocyigit, who's amazing, and Diane Smith, and these wonderful actors from all of these incredible TV shows and Broadway, and also directed by Gregory Chaffee and Emily Denova, assistant director, Matthew Simpkins, cinematographer, all incredible people.
Yeah, Emily was on the show describing the very, very, very interesting way of the whole shebang, the deal in the was it the Poconos or the
in the Poconos? Yep.
Poconos, yeah, right. And I remember watching when she was going to be on. I saw your teaser for Into the Water.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not teaser, sorry. Your
trailer. Mm-hmm.
Trailer, sorry. And I haven't seen a good trailer in a long time, and that was really well put together. I mean, it looked like this feature film. It really did, and it looked incredibly interesting, and something that, you know, was just captured you, like what's going to happen next type of thing.
It's a psychological thriller that is about hope and possibility.
Yeah, good.
I'm glad we've got the opportunity to promote it, because as you said, this is what you've been given the opportunity to be able to produce that you otherwise wouldn't have done. Arguably, it would have sat on your shelf, and you may have got round to it at some time, but it wouldn't be what it is. So I'm really encouraged that people are able to produce things and get them out in a different channel. And I think you've both so far mentioned this, that what comes next won't necessarily be what came before. There are different.
We certainly hope so.
Yeah, well, exactly. From the and we've had this discussion in the past as well. We've had a number of guests who've also been quite fervent activists in terms of theatre, so women's theatre, or theatre for people of colour, or the place for equality and diversity in cinema and TV, all these things which were really starting to bubble up before COVID hit. Some of the things which have bubbled over in the summer, there's a real desire for what comes next to address those issues, but also simply from the practicality of accessibility to networks, as we've heard from Jennifer, accessibility to markets, accessibility to ways of delivering your content. That's all changed, and even down to equity, now having to consider streaming licenses, online performance licenses, recorded show licenses, which just didn't exist before. For a small theatre like ours, when we were considering what can we do, and we thought, well, we could still do some of these shows, but show them, there were no licenses, and Frenchies and Dramatists Guild and whatever couldn't tell us whether we could do them or not.
Of course.
Because they didn't know. And that's something which is developing. And I hope some of the fear of, well, if we allow it to be shown on the internet, no one will go to the theatre. I hope that fear has gone away, because I genuinely believe, I've seen Hamilton on Disney Plus when it came out. I thought that was a wonderful show, a wonderful presentation of the show. I still want to see it on the stage. I still want to go and see it. I actually want to see the actors live doing it. It won't stop me from. I may not want to go and see it on Broadway at the price of the tickets, but I might go and see the tour, or I might go and But it doesn't. That doesn't put me personally off going to live theatre.
History supports the theory that theater will continue. Theater is an ancient art. People have been sitting in the Roman Forum or whatever, the outdoor arenas forever. And it will continue because there is nothing like it.
It's been dying for thousands. It's on the point of death for thousands of years, and it just won't go. It just won't shuffle off.
It's all about that one thing that we're missing right now, which is connection.
Absolutely.
We are longing for a hug, and theater and live music, symphony orchestra, cabaret, stand-up comics, whatever it is, live experiencing of the arts, going to a museum, a gallery. There's absolutely nothing that can replace that visceral feeling from head to toe. It is a hug that nothing else can replace. So
absolutely.
Worry.
And again, it's possibilities. It's possibilities that are open to us going forward.
And now it's the time to prepare.
Yes.
For whatever, not only prepare, but pave the way. Get down on your knees and put those bricks in the road. Paving, if we're all working together, that road will become very apparent very quickly.
Another title, Steve. You're gonna have
there we go. I'm being flooded with titles now, but I think I'll stick with the possibilities one. But so Robin, back over to you.
Yeah. Before we get to the next test, one thing that I was watching Singing in the Rain, and they're all laughing over the talking picture, right? So that had to happen, and they all thought it was ridiculous, and so all these Zoom things, I was not looking forward to it. But in its own way, in the way that we can do it, it has its advantages. And but again, we need to get back to some live stuff. So next on our couch, unfortunately, her video is not working, but she's still here, is Junie. How are you, Junie?
Good. I hope you can hear me.
I can. Can everybody else? Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
I was worried that if you just saw a black square, you forget that I was here and just end the whole Zoom meeting.
Oh, of course not.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Still see your name.
I promise my headshot actually has a face.
Yeah, send a headshot and I'll incorporate it into the
that'd be great.
Video.
Yeah, CGI for me.
So Junie has a very interesting resume that I'll let her talk about. And Junie, I want to know how the pandemic has affected you from the start of it to the middle of it to whatever's happening now and beyond. So go right ahead.
Well, I'm kind of a scrapper, so I tend to hustle to get every job that I get. So I'm so used to finding my own jobs, and I have my agents, but I'm used to just really getting everything on my own. So when the pandemic hit, it cut off a lot of avenues to be able to get that work. So it's a little bit of a culture shock at first, and the first couple of months wasn't that bad because I kept thinking, okay, it didn't really occur to me that we were in a pandemic, because when it hit in March, I kept thinking, okay, they shut down Los Angeles, so it'll open back up in April. And I was like, April, it's still shut down. Okay, we'll open up in May. And they kept pushing it back and pushing it back. And then when it got into the 4th month, I was like, do I want to keep paying rent in LA when I'm in Texas? So it was just, it was gradual, because the first couple of months, I just felt like it was going to be over the next month and the next month. So it kept carrying over for about a couple of months. And it didn't really occur to me until the summer that I was like, this is really here to stay. And so I had to kind of wrap my brain around, this might be the new normal for maybe 9 months to a year. And at first I was still getting work. I think since March, I've done maybe 3 jobs, and I'm so used to booking a job at least once every 2 weeks. So, going from 2 jobs a month to 3 jobs in 9 months, I was like, okay, now I'm going to have to readjust and focus on something else. I wouldn't go crazy. And so I got away a little bit from the acting and started trying to focus on the personal part of my life, which is good, because when you're, and as these 2 ladies know, when you're focused on your acting, you kind of let everything else fall to the side. And this was a good opportunity to balance yourself back out and just become a more well-rounded person. And I started focusing more on family, just my well-being, and just being calm and not, we're so caught up in just trying to be a part of the rat race. And it was a way that it forced everybody to just stop and think and just slow down, and then start doing creative projects that you can do at home. So I started writing, I started brainstorming about how to produce my own show, and it was very therapeutic. And I guess because I'm somewhat of a hermit already to begin with, I never really went out that much, so it wasn't much of a change. But once it's taken away from you, as opposed to having it there and deciding not to do things, but then having it taken away from you, changes your whole perspective. Because before, I was like, okay, I'm not going out because I choose not to go out. I still had that option, but now I'm not going out because I can't go out. And then it changes your mindset. It really does.
I can definitely relate to that. I think Robin was also nodding away there, that I'm not a great socializer. Theatre is what I do. That's my extrovert piece is theatre, not going out and pressing the flesh and meeting people. But when suddenly that option's taken away, it does, it doesn't feel like a choice anymore. Absolutely. So can you give me a little bit of your background, sort of before before COVID hit? Because I mean, it sounds as though you were involved in quite a variety of projects, sort of booking things week after week after week. So what kind of things did you work through before that?
Well, I started off in dance when I was about 16, and unfortunately I had a bit of directional dyslexia. So then I pushed myself to acting, and I really wasn't comfortable making that transition, but then I got used to it, and then I got away from dancing. I started doing the acting, and now I'm doing more. I wish I had more of a theater background, but I suffer from really bad stage fright. And that's why right now being this black square is really good for me. Because as you can see, I'm letting it rip, right?
Fantastic.
If I saw myself on camera right now, I probably would not be talking this fast. But yeah, I totally lost my train of thought. But yeah, my background is really more into commercials, industrials, voiceovers. Like I said, I do whatever I can get my hands on, and I just love the process of every project I work on. Whether I've done theater before, and it's strange, but I can't do straight theater, which is going out there and doing a monologue or doing dialogue. I feel more comfortable if I'm doing theater if there's song and dance involved, because I feel like I can hide behind the dancing. So I kind of started moving into doing independent films. I love doing guerrilla films, guerrilla filmmaking. I started off doing animes when I was in Houston, and then I started, I'm Asian, so I get a lot of, I guess, what do you call it? When they're looking for an Asian person, a Hispanic person, an African-American person, I'm always there to kind of round out the cast. So I get a lot of opportunities to do projects where specifically they want an Asian person. So that opens a lot of doors for me. And yeah, mostly I love to do independent films. That's kind of my bread and butter, independent films.
No, that's great. And as you say, you hustle.
I am a scrapper.
You hustle. Exactly. So there's generally always some work to be had. And it just sort of reading between the lines. It sounds like you're open to a lot of different types of work, which makes you flexible in terms of what you can be involved in, which is a great skill to have. Stage fright or not, it's a great skill to have.
They say jack of all trades and master of none.
that may put yourself down a little bit. I'm sure that you've got more success than that. But just thinking about the sort of the commercial, industrial, and you mentioned the voiceover work. What's your feeling on the way that voiceover is going to be as we come out of this pandemic, or as we sort of continue for a while? Because just about everything, every third advert on Facebook for me is take this voiceover class. Be a voiceover artist. Anybody can be a voiceover artist. I know it's not. It doesn't work that way, but it does seem to me that there may well be an increase in competition for voiceover work.
I find that when I was in Texas, I was getting voiceover work very easily, and I think getting work in Texas is easy in general because it's you're a bigger fish in a small pond. But then when I got to LA, I found voiceover so competitive. It was so difficult to book because I didn't even try it. I just left it. Doing voiceover in LA, it was just way too competitive for me. And I get it when I can, but it's not something that I'm like, I have to do it, because it was just so many people go into voiceover work in LA. It's hard to get. So I think now with the pandemic, everyone is doing self-tapes. And I don't know how these two ladies are, but for me, it's very difficult to book from a self-tape. I've been able to book from self-tapes, but it's not as frequent as if I come in person. When I come in person, there's that connection. There's that personality, you feel people's energy. When you're doing a self-tape, it's already difficult because you have to do it yourself. So it's never going to look as professional as if you go in person. And now during the pandemic, everyone is doing self-tapes. So there's a lot more to choose from. And I find that sometimes I do a self-tape and I send a WeTransfer of my audition, and some people, they don't even open them, and I've sent my audition. So it's much more competitive, especially with what we're going through right now. There's a higher number of people doing tapes.
I mean, this is interesting because this is kind of a flip side to that idea of opportunity that we were talking about earlier with Jennifer, about, you know, being able to network and see more people. Arguably, more people can do that.
Yes.
But potentially, you know, and that may be an opportunity for the likes of people who maybe don't present well in person, because I'm getting a very clear feeling for your personality on this call, and that you know, you've got a lot of energy, and that talking to you in person, as you say, you're not on video, so you're not clamming up. So you know, we're hearing that, and there's a lot of energy coming through, and that's very positive. I can imagine that if you're video 103 of people self-taping, and really, you know, the effort then is to get your personality to come through in a way that distinguishes you from, you know, as it were, you know, 100 other Asian ladies going for part of Asian number 3 in that particular show. So I absolutely, you know, it's a flip side, which I think we haven't really talked about before, that where you may have been fairly successful.
Well, maybe it's
in person.
I'm not good at self tapes.
Maybe that's it. Maybe,
Okay,
maybe you need a better camera.
Let's be honest. I'm just not good at self tapes. So if you're ever up for a role against me, you will get it, because I am not. I have a tendency to slack off when people say self tape. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have to worry so much about my hair and my makeup so much, and I have a tendency to slack off when people say self-tape.
I think you may well have a few advantages over me for Asian lady number 3. Just saying.
Self-tapes don't keep me on my feet, because I'm like, who am I trying to impress but the camera? You know, so I would, you know, I'm sure other people have much better experience, but me personally, it's difficult for me because I end up having to do my own lines to read against myself. I have to do my own lighting. It just, you know, I'm kind of an anxiety ridden person, so having to do my own self-tape, just I see it as a stressful situation, and maybe that's why
you always have the opportunity, because we're kind of opening you up to the wider world here. But you always have the opportunity of reaching out to any of our fellow guests. I'm going to put them on the spot here. Reaching out to any of our fellow guests, or Robin or myself, anybody who's listening to this. If you want someone to read against, simply to, you know, jump on the phone and read the lines out while you react to them, or jump on a Zoom and react. Then that's a possibility.
Okay, well, let me ask you this: do you have this problem when you do self tapes? I am a perfectionist. So when I do a self-tape, even an audition that's so simple as, hey, walk up to the camera, say your slate, and do this slight little action, and I'll find that by the end of my self-tape, I've done 87 takes. So I don't know how to get it to where I just do it and feel comfortable with it. I watch it and I'm like, got to do it again and again and again. And I think that's why for me, self-tapes are sorry, that someone's calling my laptop.
Oh,
so that's why for me,
I was looking around to make sure it wasn't me.
My niece was calling me on my laptop. So for me, I have the hard obstacle of not being a perfect, because, you know, when you go into an audition live, if you mess up, that's it. They're not going to give you 87 takes. So, but when you're doing a self-tape, you're regulating what you send in, so you keep doing it over and over and over, and and you repeat it. And I think that's my biggest hurdle with trying to do a self-tape. I'd love to hear your input on it, how you feel about that.
Well, I'm going to throw this open to Teri and Jennifer. By all means, take yourself off mute if you've got any tips at all, or
I'll go first. So I've been doing self-tapes for film for years, and what's happened is the bar has gone way up here. So we have to get our tools better. We have to invest in lighting, and we have to get really master at filming ourselves. I booked what turned out to be a $1,400 background extra job based on a real easy slate that I did. So I'm really limit myself to maybe 15 minutes because I'm really busy. Let me just get my hair and makeup done, jump in the camera, do a simple, slate, here I am, and whatever the action is. And then later I go to it and I edit it. Which one do I want to send? For a filmed one, it's best to have a reader. It's best to have somebody in a couple binds. For film, I have had to record my lines, the other person's lines, and do it. But the same thing, I don't give myself the chance, and I'm a perfectionist, for film auditions to do that many takes. I do a couple till I feel I'm connected, and then I move on. Then I edit and send off. I find the slates really easy, and I have booked on them, and I have gotten a lot of callbacks from decent self-tapes. But now I realize the bar is up here, and I've taken a couple classes, and I've got to up everything. Yeah, because you are competing on a major level, but these days everybody gets to. But yeah, I just limit myself so I'm not the perfectionist when it comes to most of my self-tapes.
Good. Good
Teri,
advice.
any advice from you?
I would just say, Hoang, hi, it's lovely to meet you. You sound absolutely delightful. I have such an image of you in my head.
Me too.
Did you picture me in pajamas? Because that's what. When I figured my camera wasn't going to work, I just got into my pajamas.
Listen, you're amazing, number one. So just start from there. And you have the ability to choose what you want to do. So if various things terrify you, darling, life is short. So why bother? Move on. And if they don't terrify you, then 1, 2, 3, give them your best shot in 3 takes and move on with your life, because it's too short. Get your good equipment, spend $120 to get a proper roll that goes behind you, of a single color that is complementary. Get your little ring light, get your tripod to put your iPhone on, call up a friend and have them read. Otherwise, just don't do it, because it's a waste of your time, and it's a waste of the casting director's time, or people like Robin and Steve, who, everybody wants you to succeed. No one wants to have someone come into a room and be terrified or watch a video of something less than. So put your best shot out there, and if it's not for you, find something better to do.
And it's funny, I actually have a ring light, but I still have all these issues.
It may not be your thing, darling. It may not be your thing.
Some tapes are challenging for me.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a lot of wonderful things going. So, maybe put your energy where someplace that fulfills you more.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say is I'm very pleased with the lighting I have in this setup for this show. Very pleased with it. More than pleased with it. However, what you can't see is the ring light I have perched on top of my computer monitor there. I've got my laptop open. I've got my computer monitor there with the ring light on top of it. There's a desk light over there. I've got a desk light just here. I've also got another light which I've clipped onto a shelf up there that points up there. So, the ring light in itself made all the difference. But for this particular presentation, it needed something more. I needed to be able to light up the shelves at the back and just make it sort of all fit together. So there are things you can do just by playing around and practicing, and that may be one thing that you say you're a perfectionist. Maybe take that technical aspect out of away from the performance, and get that technical aspect down. Spend a couple of hours playing around until you think you look like you're in a position, as Teri says, if you invest in a backdrop that's just behind you, and just work on that before you actually have to. So that when you're on a Zoom call like this, or just a Zoom call with anybody else, or if you decide you're going to FaceTime with your niece, take that opportunity to get the lighting as you want it, and then, because for this setup, it took me quite a while to get this setup right, just to get the lighting exactly right. No,
look marvelous.
Yeah, but now I
it's a healthy glow he has.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, but that's a bit of the powder I put on to stop the shine off my balding pate. So now, 10 minutes before the call, I can just go bish bash bosh, put it together, and I know where I'm standing, I know where I'm sitting, I know where the lights have got to go, and I know which lights have got to go on and which setting I put them on, and I don't need to think about that anymore. So when it comes to doing this part of it, which also was quite terrifying when we first set off on this, I'm not worrying about how I look. I may still look hideous to people out there in the real world, but I'm not worried about that anymore. Robin, I mean, you are one of your professional hats that you wear is audition technique.
Yep.
It's what you do, and I mean, I don't know whether or not you've yet covered much in terms of the video audition.
Yeah. Lately, I'm looking at reels of my students, and making sure that they're and most of them are actors. They are singers too. They try to get all the audition, the prepared auditions ready to go. And obviously in this pandemic, they have to do them, pretty perfect, with a lot of perfection involved. So I have them keep sending me stuff that they have taped, and it's stuff like background. It's stuff like, I mean, it's still hair. Is your hair in your face, and it's still, a lot of very basic stuff, the Teri was talking about the coloring and things like that. But also I had a student last night, she did this audition performance for me, and she just looked askew, because that's what you do on stage. You don't look directly into the people that are right in front of you. It makes them nervous. But it didn't work. And when she did a Doll's House. She did Nora from a Doll's House. She did it straight at me. It was gorgeous. It was just gorgeous. It just changed the whole thing. And that's just a focus. That's just a focus. So all these things these people do have to learn. But the idea of the reel, as all of you know, that's an older idea. I mean, that came with, I don't know, 20 years ago, when you could start filming yourself really well and having it on the internet, having it on a website, all of that stuff. So, and the bar is up there. I also wanted to say a little funny story. I'll keep it short, but John Taylor was on, if you remember, Steve, and John is another expat from England, and he was an actor at the Playhouse, and he told us a story. I don't know if you remember this, that he's a voiceover guy, also an actor, but a lot of voiceover stuff, and he has the voice for it. And this was that huge account that he was trying to go for. I forgot what it was, Microsoft or something like that.
Yeah, one of the big ones, yeah.
One of the big ones. It was a commercial, and he lost to an American, and they wanted a British voice, but he lost to an American.
And you don't get much more British
than John
British
Taylor. Voice than John.
You don't get much better British voice than John Taylor, but
it's all about who you know.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly. In that situation, it may well be, yes.
I mean, it's just, you spend years and years and years and years building your reputation, getting to know people, building these relationships. And as you get to know whatever, theater companies, casting directors, film and television casting directors, voiceover people, all of that, once you infiltrate that world and you have a consistent and professional reputation, and the quality of the product that you deliver is impeccable, and reliable, then you will work. And
Yeah.
but you know, they're always, you will always, and you guys know, I mean, you hire who you know.
Yeah.
If you have a choice
Exactly.
between two people and one is a known commodity and one is an unknown, you're always going to choose the known commodity.
But we always get criticized for that negatively.
Well, it's just
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
it's just a reality,
I
and
know.
I think nepotism can be a beautiful thing, you know, if you're
Right.
working with amazing people. But it's just a part of the reality of this industry. You just have to embrace it.
The key thing, and this is a great, you know, a great conversation to be having, because again, we've seen this on this show tonight, that being able to network with more people, being able to be seen by more people and making more contacts with more people allows you to build those networks and potentially to get those opportunities that that before would have been closed to you, because the known quantities are the ones that are in the frame. But now you become more of a known quantity because you've had the opportunity to have a conversation with people. I mean, we on you know, on quite a very local scale here, the show that that Robbie mentioned earlier that we put out at Halloween, Little Death Song, written by Robin, was a two-hander for two ladies. One of the ladies, Kimberly, who played played the main subject, who was actually, you know, part of an original monologue that Robin did way back. She was cast because the part was effectively written for her.
Yeah.
I think I'd say that, Robin. It was effectively written with her in mind. So she played that part in this show that we put out at Halloween. The young lady who played opposite her, we had we had her on the show. We had her on this show, and I would arguably say that the part in Little Death Song, you know, was at least in part due to the fact that we'd had her on the show, and we'd had that conversation and got to know her. She was a local actress that people knew anyway, but she got the opportunity to play that part because we got to know her on the show and chat to her. And Robin had got to talk more with her outside the bounds of the show to be able to get her interested in doing that particular part. So, you know, it will work. It can work. It can work that way, that you can build up more contacts, sort of beyond those physical limitations, given the fact that everybody has to work like this at the moment anyway.
The beautiful
That's my
thing
view.
is, as Jennifer said earlier, and you both said, there's just a little bit more time for things right now, and having these sort of wonderful conversations, which were rare pre-COVID. I mean, let's face it, we were all quite busy, weren't we?
Yep.
You know, but there's something really delicious and special and about this taking of the time. There's a wonderful Orson Welles, one of his first films, called The Magnificent Ambersons. The beginning of the film starts out talking about how things were different in this era where people had time for cotillions and teas and serenades, and they had time to wait for the lady to come down to meet the car. You know, I think our global pace was too fast, and the slowing of it is in and of itself, as Hoang said, this balance, finding this balance again, finding this healing. It's been a wonderful opportunity. So I think that that these sort of things are really special.
They are, and I know that Robin and I have felt like we've had the opportunity to chat to so many wonderful people that otherwise we wouldn't get the opportunity to. I mean, Jennifer.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, regarding going back to her question about self-tape, with the abundance of time, you have the time to go online and find all these classes on self-tape, because before I just had it down kind of my own way. But Screen Actors Guild has some. You can pay some of the casting director sessions, you know, sometimes it's pay what you can. And there's a lot of how to master. And as he was saying earlier, Steve, about lighting, if you get all that set up before and your background, then you just step into the camera and give yourself whatever time. But those resources are out there now that weren't there a year ago. And we have the time to study up, which, like I said, I've done a lot of stuff on the fly for years. And now I'm fine tuning how I'm presenting things and how I can make my auditions stand out, how I can even level them up. And we have the time to do it, which was something that I have not had for many years. So
absolutely. So I hope that sort of helps with some practical ideas and with some encouragement as well, because some of the times it really is a case of just hearing what other people have to say so that you can internalize it yourself, and not either think, well, this is a problem I have, so it's a problem I have, or it's a problem only I have, and it's special to me. And it, you know, I would say, you know, Jennifer, as you've just said, you know, going back to looking at your self tapes from a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years before, compared to what you can do now with the tips and techniques that you've had time to learn, is shows that, you know, we're all as in the dark as everybody else at some point, and
like
we're learning.
You know,
So,
it's the more self tapes you do, the more comfortable you are doing something, the better you get at it.
That's right. But I really would advise, and you know, my background is actually in business, and something I learned very, very, very early on. I was having to do presentations in front of customers, in front of lots of people. I learned a couple of things very early on. The first is that preparation is key. Absolutely, and that, you know, that obviously, you know, goes for performance as well. But just preparation technically is key. Get yourself prepared in a way that you can just take it out of the box and tweak it for whatever situation you're in. But you're effectively taking it out of the box and doing it, you know, as far as lighting or whatever it is you need to do. And the other is that everyone watching you wants you to succeed. Absolutely. If you go to the theatre and you see an actor struggle, you will squirm in your seat. You want that actor to succeed. If that actor dries, but then suddenly comes back with a fantastic line, how good does that make you feel as an audience member? How much are you rooting for that individual? So always keep that in mind, and certainly as a performer and a director and sort of president of the Playhouse, you know, that's what I want. I want I want actors to succeed, and I want them to be, you know, to be proud of themselves and do well, and we all do. So take that as a little bit of encouragement that things are generally on your side. The odds are in your favor. So there we go. We're reaching actually the top of the hour, so we've gone on for a lot longer than we intended, and I'm sorry if I've kept you here beyond the time at which you would have liked to have been here, but I think this has been a great session. It's been a great session from a practical point of view, talking about some of those practical things that as performers and creators we're able to do in a situation like this, and that we can see have succeeded. That doesn't mean to say that everything that everybody on this call or on this show has done in that intervening time has succeeded, because not everything will have succeeded in the same way the full career. Not everything does succeed, but there's always tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. There's always the next. Robin gets that reference from me. Robin knows why I said that one. But
you know what you have to do after this show, right?
yeah, absolutely. So, but what I would say is we've reached the top of the hour. So, Robin, do you have anything else you'd like to chat about before we break off?
No, it's great stuff, and thank you so much for all your contributions. The contributions have been fantastic. It's going to be hard to ask a lot of people back, but we'll do it.
Yeah,
we'll do it as best as we can.
Absolutely.
And just wanted to reiterate that next week will be our last one as far as this season of 6-month season of this thing that we're doing here. And I'm looking forward to that, but I'm also looking forward to revisiting everybody. And so, yeah, I think that should do it.
Yeah. So what I would say, and I've said this as we go along to a lot of our guests, that we'd love to have you back, and we certainly will be doing more of these in the future. I see this as something which has been a great opportunity for Robin and I, absolutely, and I think our guests have generally had a good time on here. Luckily, because we're dealing with people in the performing arts, they tend to like talking about themselves, which is a great thing for us. wonderful thing for us, and we love listening to it. We love listening to it. So we'll break off. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time tonight.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a lovely thing you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, lovely to meet all of you.
Great session. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bring the life of the movie.
Yeah. So all that's left for me to do. All that's left for me to do is to say goodbye to our guests and say goodbye to our viewers on Facebook Live and wherever else you find this show, since it will be out there in the cloud, as Robin says. Everything is going to be out there forever. So we just have to say goodnight. So say goodnight, Robin.
Good night, Robin.
Yay, you got it right this time. Fantastic. And thank you very much. And we'll
I'm
see
waving.
you all.
You can't see me, but I'm waving.
Yes, we'll see a virtual wave from you.
We can feel you waving.
So thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you all again next week for our final show of this season. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.